Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Age of Overlord spoilers are in full swing, and by the time this video comes out, we should have all the juicy details. This means a slew of new archetypes for us to salivate over, but also some legacy cards that help to hype up some old favorites. And that's really appropriate because this theme has fans, and it is their favorite. Premiering in the May 2010 core set, The Shining Darkness, Watts have been the gold standard for a deck flavor I like to call funny lol guys. Are they strong? No, their stats are pitiful. Are their effects impactful? Circumstantially, none of them are causing board wipes or setting up an impenetrable wall of negates. But are they funny? You better believe they are. Every card is all about causing problems for your opponent, delighting in their struggle as they try to find a path to victory, only for you to snatch it away in a shocking turn of events. But will the new support help elevate them to a modern meta marvel? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. We'll run the circuit to see who's here, see what their electrifying game plan is, then see what assistance we can plug in. It's time to brighten up the room with Watts Explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons and the fine people over at Dragon Shield. If you want to protect your cards with the strongest scales on the market that even come with their own lore while supporting the channel, use my affiliate link in the description. So, what's the deal with Watts? Well, they're a series of light attribute thunder type monsters that are all electrical versions of little critters. Fish, insects, rodents, the works. Their stat spread is usually pretty small, but that doesn't stop them from being the cutest little scrappers on the market, because they have a lot of battle effects, running the gamut from having battled, being destroyed by battle, attacking directly, and effects that trigger when dealing direct battle damage, with each one doing a little something to hit your opponent with a paralyzing jolt, hindering their game actions or limiting them in some other way. First up, let's get some stragglers out of the way. Watt Kid, Watt Psychic Fighter, Watt Kinetic Puppeteer, and Watt Tail Dragon are all Watt monsters, but don't really have anything to do with the archetype in general. The first and last are normal monsters. Fighter is a strange bit of grave control that would later become a Psy-Frame driver, and Puppeteer manipulates zone placement, so they don't exactly fill the stun your opponent with strange battle tricks playstyle, though notably we can summon Watt Tail Dragon under certain circumstances, which gives us a pretty substantial body to work with as opposed to the rest of our critters. Also, it's just chock full of references. Level 6, ancient rules, 2500. It even mentions watts in the flavor text. That's kind of wild. I should make an episode about those sometime. In the meantime, let's talk about our real monsters. Watt Hopper is a level 1 monster with 0 attack and defense, and your opponent can't target other Watt monsters you control with attacks or card effects. Now, that might seem innocuous considering its stats don't exist, but take a look at it again. Notice how it doesn't say except Watt Hopper in there. That means that if you can stick 2 of these on the board at the same time, your opponent won't be able to attack or target your Watt monsters, period. So as long as you don't go off theme, your opponent won't be able to launch any kind of offensive against you. Granted, this effect has gotten a smidge weaker over time as non-targeting effects have become more common, but that's all going to depend on the matchup, which is something you can prepare for. Now, your opponent might be a little flustered not being able to push for game while you get to do funny Watt stuff, but it's not your fault. Everyone out there was saying you had to touch grass. How are you supposed to know they didn't mean touch grasshoppers? Watt Beta is a level 2 tuner monster with 100 attack and 0 defense, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, they discard a card of their choice. That's, not a great effect, not gonna lie. Discarding is already a pretty dubious prospect, giving your opponent a chance to activate any grave effects, but now you don't even get to hope you hit something that actually hurts them? Trust me, if they have a card that benefits from it, they will discard it. And for what? You getting to deal 100 points of damage? This might not have been a problem back when this card was released, but we here watching this video are playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Betas might be a fighting fish, but they don't stand a fighting chance with us. Watt Lemur is a level 2 monster with 800 attack and 100 defense, and if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by your opponent's card, your opponent can't conduct their battle phase during their next turn. Now, keep in mind that it checks for the next turn. It's not like Runic where it checks for the next battle phase. So if they pop Lemur during their main phase 1, they'll still get to push for damage during that same turn. It'll be the next turn's battle phase that they have to skip. Putting them under a condition like this is pretty funny and helps give you some breathing room to build up your board, which I'll have you know is very important. You'll need plenty of time to monkey around. Fox is a level 2 tuner monster with 800 attack and 100 defense, and if this card is destroyed by an opponent's card, your opponent can't special summon a monster or activate spells, traps, spell or trap effects, or monster card effects for the rest of the turn. This effectively limits them to only normal summoning and setting, which is kind of a huge deal if you can trigger this early enough on their turn. In fact, back when Union Carrier was legal to play, there was a little combo you could do where, by making Artifact Durandal and equipping either with Fox, you can make an opponent's effect destroy it because it doesn't say it has to be destroyed in the monster zone. And now, they couldn't do anything. But now that Carrier is gone, you might need to find some other funny way to pull this off. Otherwise, it's going to be just a neat way to skip your opponent's main phase too. But don't worry about that. Look, it's got little boxing gloves and a bib! What a little darling. Dragonfly is a level 2 monster with 900 attack and 100 defense, and if destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon a monster from your deck. This was pretty helpful in setting up the Hopper lock, since you could loop through Dragonflies until they ran out of attacks, summon Hopper at the last summon, then bring in another right out of your hand. And remember, this works on all monsters, meaning this can get some huge ones like Tail Dragon into rotation. So it's not just good on the defense, it's great for offense as well. And it even works when being destroyed by a card effect. Can you believe it? It's been so long since we've covered a floater that actually accounts for that, I think I'm gonna cry. Barracks is a level 3 tuner monster with 300 attack and 0 defense, and when this card inflicts battle damage by a direct attack, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Okay, this is better. It's got a bit more attack, and now the discard is random, but it's still pretty bad, not gonna lie. Its level and tuner status might make it helpful when making your synchros, but otherwise it's gonna take a lot more effort to fish out any value from this card. Woodpecker is a level 3 monster with 1000 attack and 100 defense, can attack twice during each battle phase, and any monster that battles with this card can't change its battle position. So if you change an opponent's monster to defense position and ping it with Woodpecker, it's no longer going to be a threat. Well, at least in combat, its effects are a whole other deal. Not to mention they'll still be around to act as material. But besides that, it's a pretty nifty way to lock down your opponent's monsters so they don't harass yours. I guess all that tweeting really was good for something. Squirrel is a level 3 monster with 700 attack and 100 defense that can also attack twice during each battle phase, and if this card battles, negate the effects of monsters it battles after damage calculation, including in the grave. This is a pretty uniquely powerful effect, not gonna lie. Not only does it permanently negate those effects, giving you another way to demolish a monster's usefulness, if it manages to beat a monster in battle, its effects won't trigger, which you usually have to keep from activating in the first place with an Armades type effect to accomplish. If you can put a meaningful attack boost on this, it can get some serious work done. And that's on top of the fact that, like Woodpecker, the double attacks aren't restricted to only monsters, so that's a lot of potential direct damage you could be dealing. Also, I feel like this monster really gets me. Like, Squirrel knows what it's like to be a little, corny. Kiwi is a level 3 tuner monster with 600 attack and 100 defense, and while on the field, monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle while they're attacking. This is a big boost to our on-battle effect monsters, since now we can run into attack position monsters, apply those effects, and walk away with only a little loss of life. It is a resource after all, might as well make use of it. But it doesn't have any other effects itself, so it might get more use as a tuner than anything else, especially after a battle phase you've used a bunch of those battle effects in. So it might seem shiny, but I don't think this bird is the brightest bulb of the bunch. Mole is a level 3 monster with 0 attack and 100 defense, can also attack twice, and if it attacks a face-down defense position monster, you can destroy that monster immediately with this card's effect without flipping it face up or applying damage calculation. That's right, if you hit your opponent with Book of Eclipse or Book of Lunar Eclipse if you're feeling fancy, this clears 2 monsters out in the blink of an eye. No damage step required. It's not very useful against Link monsters for obvious reasons, but to be fair, its alternative Woodpecker isn't doing much better. It does have usefulness as a side deck choice against flip focus decks, but despite being an honorary member of the Squirtle Squad, I don't really dig it. Giraffe is a level 4 monster with 1200 attack and 100 defense, and this card can attack directly. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, your opponent can't activate cards or effects until the end of this turn. This is a pretty spiffy way to ensure your opponent doesn't interact with you. Sure, you're giving up most of your main phase 1, but if this goes through during the battle phase, you can do all kinds of stuff during main phase 2 and not have to worry about the consequences. It even disables floating effects, so it's a great time to use your removal. Granted, this will keep even harmful mandatory effects from from activating, but you're a smart person, you're playing Watts, you can figure out the right sequencing. Though, honestly, the messed up thing is that you could play this in any deck, giving almost any theme that can utilize this effectively a chance to push through boards. Though I don't know how Watt Giraffe will feel sticking its neck out for those other strategies. Watt Pheasant is a level 4 monster with 1000 attack and 800 defense, and this card can attack directly. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can select a face-up monster on the field and remove it from play until the end of this turn. So if you have any other monsters you want to let in for some damage but can't get past your opponent's opposition, just hit them with Pheasant and send them on a little vacation. This also has the benefit of removing any material from an Xyz monster, or even resetting any once while on the field effects like Windups, Firewall Dragon, or Barone, since you can banish your own cards. I initially thought this monster would be quite churlish, but it turns out playing this is quite the pheasant experience. Watt Cobra is a level 4 monster with 1000 attack and 500 defense that can also attack directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, add a Watt monster from your deck to your hand. Yeah, we've got a Watt searching effect that gets you any monster while dealing 1000 points of damage. It's kinda like a messed up upstart goblin, but only for tiny lightning creatures. And while that effect is already pretty bonkers, trust me, it's about to get even more bonkers. Though we already know it can get monsters like Watt Giraffe to shut off your opponent's game, or Watt Dragonfly to help keep your board stocked up. It's a fantastic member of the lineup, and it has the best drip. And not just for its incredible crown, but for that fashionable hoodie. Watt Tuna is a level 4 tuna monster, I couldn't resist, with 800 attack and 700 defense, and it can also attack directly. If any of your monsters inflict battle damage to your opponent at the end of the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can tribute this card and one or more non-tuner monsters from your hand and or face-up field, and if you do, special summon a Watt Synchro monster from your extra deck, whose level equals the total level of the attributed monsters. If you couldn't tell, this is one of our newer pieces of support, and it works like a dream. Here's the combo. Watt Cobra attacks directly, triggering its effect at that point to search you Watt Tuna. Then, now that we're at the end of the damage step, you can special summon that searched fish, attack directly with it again, then begin what amounts to a battle synchro summon. And while we have a few we can choose from, the Cobra Tuna combo just recently got a new level 8 to accommodate it. The cool part is that you can tribute any monster with this, which means you could use non-thunders, which is a usual requirement for the non-tuner material of our on-theme synchros, giving you better flexibility with our off-theme monsters. It's a wonderful piece of legacy support, and it proves ol' Arnie wrong. It is a tuna! It is! That's a tuna! Alright, that's all the main deck monsters. Now it's time to see what our extra deck has in store. Watt Chimera is a level 6 synchro monster with 1400 attack and 1200 defense, requiring a Watt tuner and one or more non-tuner thunder monsters as material. This card can attack directly, and if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, place a random card from your opponent's hand on top of their deck. Ooh, now that's how you do hand control in Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't risk sending anything to grave, and you essentially lock your opponent out of their draw. This is a scary monster to continuously ping with, and basically asks your opponent if they have the cards necessary to deal with this at that moment, because they aren't likely to get another chance at it. I mean, without any other cards, what chance do they have? Watt Hydra is a level 7 synchro monster with 1500 attack and defense, requiring a Watt tuner and one or more non-tuner thunder monsters as material. This card can attack your opponent directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, choose a card in your deck and remove it from play. Then add that card to your hand during the second standby phase after activating this effect. Yeah, they put Gold Sarcophagus on a monster, ain't that funny? Though I'm not entirely sure how this helps our game plan, at least in a meaningful amount of time. Decks like Ritual Beast interact with the Banished Zone all the time, so Kanahawk's Gold Sark effect makes sense. But here, it's just a regular delayed search. Granted, it can search any card in the game, but unless you want a universally useful card, or one that has an effect when banished, it might not help since the game could be in a largely different state, which means that what you pick is going to be very important. Watt Taurus is a level 8 synchro monster with 1600 attack and 1700 defense, requiring a Watt monster and one or more non-tuner thunder monsters as material. This card can attack directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can shuffle both one Watt tuner from your grave and a face-up thunder non-tuner you control into the deck, and if you do, special summon a Watt synchro monster from your extra deck, except a copy of this card. This is an amazing extension to the Cobra line. That, and Tuna can make Watt Taurus deal an additional 16
1,600 points of direct damage, totaling to 3,400 so far. Then you can use this card's effect, shuffling this and the Watt Tuna back into the deck to get Watt Chimera, attacking again for an additional 1,400 damage. This means you've done 4,800 damage off a single Cobra, and you've locked your opponent out of their next draw. Do that a second time in a row, and that's lethal. This is a great addition to the theme, and puts your opponent on a staggering 2-turn clock at any point in the game. I mean, what a doozy! Alright, that's all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Watt Key is a normal spell card that lets face-up Watt monsters you control attack your opponent directly this turn. This helps with cards like Watt Beta and Barracks to get their effects online, as well as make Woodpecker and Squirrel some real dangerous threats, because their double attack combined with direct attacking can be fatal. But it does fall to the wayside since most of our Watts that are worth playing already attack directly, and there's no such thing as attacking directly, but more. So Watt Key isn't exactly a key item. Watt Train is a normal spell card that adds Watt cards with different names from your deck to your hand except copies of this card, up to the number of Thunder monsters you control with different names. And during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the grave, you can banish this card from your grave to special summon as many Watt monsters as possible with different names from your hand. That's a bit of an absurd card, not gonna lie. The initial payoff does depend on how much of a board you can establish, but even just searching one monster once you've normal summoned another can set you up for success. Then, on subsequent turns, you can drop all the Watts out of your hand to bum rush your opponent. Heck, if you have another of Watt Train in hand after that, you can activate that copy to refill your hand. And remember, it searches cards, not just monsters, so all your spell and trap support is viable to grab as well. I am a bit sad I've recently done a train joke in the virtual world video that would have fit really well here, but I can't be negative for long. Lemur looks like they're having the time of their life as a conductor, it's so cute. Watson is a continuous spell card that, when a Thunder monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, gains you life points equal to the damage inflicted. And with all the direct attacking you can do, that life gain can add up pretty quickly. Though it is another of those do-nothing cards. If gaining life points was tied into how the deck functions, that'd be one thing, but we aren't Arrow Mages, so all this does is help give us a bit of a cushion to help against our opponent's offensive pushes. Wait, why doesn't Arrow Mage have a card like this? What in the heck is going on here? Watt Kingdom is a continuous spell card that keeps your opponent from activating the effects of monsters in the same column as this card and or one of your Watt monsters that activate when they're normal or special summoned. It can also target a Watt monster you control, and you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Thunder monsters. Also special summon a Watt monster with a different name from your deck, then lose life points equal to the summoned monster's attack. Okay, this is a pretty stellar card for that last effect, and a little bit for the first. Now, it might seem like Watt Kinetic Puppeteer has finally found some usage now that we've established some column play, but that couldn't be further from the truth, since it only stops effects from activating if we use Puppeteer to move a monster whose effect has already been activated into a Watt column. The effect will go off without a hitch, because it doesn't negate on resolution, and the effect has already started, so it can't be stopped. In fact, it makes it worse, because now you've freed up another zone for them to summon to without regret. And even still, it's only on summon effects that get stopped here. Anything else is still fair game. But, given enough monsters, you could end up fully keeping them off effects like that, and can even lock out the EMZ fairly easily by playing this in one of its columns and putting one of your Watts in the other. The summon effect, though, is what really pushes this over the top. With it, any Watt monster gets you into Cobra, which gets you into the Taurus line we talked about a bit ago. And since Watt Train exists, you're basically running 6 copies of this. Now, because this has to summon a differently named monster, this can't help you set up the Hopper lock, but you can grab Dragonfly, which can help you get to the lock. And that's a funny little piece of utility. This is a fantastic piece of real estate that I'm sure Watt players are going to have a blast playing in. But I don't care how many life points you make me pay, I'm not playing Watson. Watt Castle is a field spell card, and any monster that attacks a Watt monster while this card is on the field loses 1,000 attack after damage calculation. Now, keep in mind, this is after damage calc, so while the debuff is permanent, it won't save your monsters in battle, which kinda blows. It is nice to have a way to deal with bigger monsters, but this is about the most reactive way you can do so, which I'm not a fan of. Thankfully, this doesn't conflict with our last card since it's a continuous spell and this is a field spell, but why have the castle when you could have yourself a whole kingdom? Watt Cube is an equipped spell card that you can only equip to Thunder monsters, and it gains 100 attack for each Thunder monster in your grave. You can also send this face-up card from the field to the grave to have one face-up Thunder monster you control gain 1000 attack, which is permanent by the way. It's certainly a good option when your grave is low on Thunders, and once it's stocked up, you can keep the cube around for some massive damage. With a boost like that, Cobra and Giraffe go absolutely feral, with Squirrel and Woodpeckers double attacking, giving you double value. It's hard to overstate just how much of an impact this has on the deck, and maybe the difference between losing a game and having it all squared away. Watt Justment is an equipped spell card that can only equip to level 3 or lower Thunder monsters. It gains 800 attack, but also loses its effects. And each time it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you draw a card. Like, you could put this on Woodpecker to make it 1800, but you're losing so much value out of it. It honestly feels like you're supposed to equip this to Watt Kid so you get all the benefits and none of the drawbacks. But then you'd have to play Watt Kid. What am I supposed to do with that? Use unexpected die? Wait, that might not be a bad idea. Oh no, I'm seriously considering playing Watt Kid. Watt Keeper is a normal trap card that selects a level 4 or lower Watt monster in your grave and special summons it from the grave, but it's destroyed during the end phase. Guess the toys can't be out of the chest for too long, huh? Sadly, this won't trigger the effect of Dragonfly, though if your opponent gets impatient, it can still help. Not to mention it can get you the material you need to make a Synchro summon if Watt Keeper sticks around on the field until your turn. Not to mention that it leaves the door open for things like Cobra and Woodpecker to get you a lot of value out of nowhere. I'm actually on the fence about this one because of the extra utility you can get, but you might be better off just playing back to the front. It's far more versatile, and that alone may be enough to keep me from playing this card. Watt Cancel is a counter trap card, and when your opponent would normal or special summon a monster, discard a Watt monster to negate the summon and destroy it. This is actually super good. Being able to hit an inherent summon is easily worth the 2 for 1, which may seem like a drawback since cards like Solemn Strike exist, but this also hits normal summons, which can be devastating, and it's searchable, meaning it's never far out of reach. This will also be the best lost art I ever get, because this is actually censored. The TCG has this big red X with a lightning bolt going through it, but the real art has Ojama Yellow getting absolutely zappified. Watt Cannon is a continuous trap card, and once per turn, when any number of level 4 or lower Thunder monsters are normal or special summoned to the field, inflict 600 damage to your opponent. Now, as someone who loves dealing burn damage in increments of 600, thank you Tax Dragon, I can see the appeal, but this comes with far too many restrictions. We could potentially summon multiple little Thunders in a single turn, sure, but the once per turn restriction means we aren't going to be summoning our opponent out of the game, which means this won't be doing much of anything for 87% of any given turn. It's a nice piece of tech, but Watt Cannon doesn't exactly blow me away. Alright, that's all the Watt cards, but what do we do with them? Well, with all our stun effects and our ability to attack directly, the main game plan is to keep our opponent from doing anything for a few turns while we swing in for game, unimpeded by any phalanx of monsters they might summon. So what can we play to help them out? Well, the first thing I think of when Thunder is involved is Thunder Dragon, and thankfully, some of them work pretty well for us. It is currently only available to play in Master Duel, but Colossus is super easy to summon, just by tributing an effect non-fusion Thunder monster during the turn you activate a Thunder monster effect in hand. Sadly, Watts don't have anything like that until Wattuna comes along. That special summon effect is an activated one, so during main phase 2 you can substitute any of your Watts for a big bruiser that has protection and will keep your opponent off of search effects. Though, until Wattuna shows up in Master Duel, you might want to consider running Nemesis Corridor, which does kind of the same thing. Or you could run a larger Thunder Dragon core here, which actually has some funny synergy with Watt Hydra. Thunder Dragons already love playing Gold Sarcophagus because it just lets you pick an effect out of all your monsters, so Watt Hydra is like a repeatable version of that. Also, fun fact that may become relevant for you soon, Thunder Dragon Titan's pop effect can be used during the damage step, so you can even use this in response to Wattuna's summon. That's just awesome. You may want to also consider running members of the Hunder family. They're a series of monsters that support level 4 light Thunder monsters, with Paw and Maw Hunders giving you an additional normal summon of a level 4 light Thunder monster, great for giving you rank 4 material, or to just get an extra body alongside Cobra, with Bro Hunter getting you a search for those kinds of monsters, and Sis Hunter getting you those monsters back from the grave. These are usually played in tandem with Thunder Seahorse as a wild search card, but it does shut off special summoning for the entire turn you use it, before and after, and we just don't play the same kind of game anymore where a card card like this can have niche value. It's just far too crippling to your playstyle. Instant Fusion isn't a bad inclusion. Not only does the Kaminari attack help with deploying Thunder Dragon Titan if you're playing that, it also gets us non-tuner material to help make our synchros. Floodgates are, of course, recommended. As a monotype and attribute deck, we can handle using both Gozen Match and Rivalry of Warlords, so use whichever one fits your format best. Our monsters having low attack stats makes them pretty fragile, but you know what'll help with that? Moon Mirror Shield! Slap this onto Watt Squirrel and it'll beat up anything it fights, get rid of their effects, and ensure they don't activate in the grave. You can also put it on something like Watt Cobra so it doesn't get run over in battle, while still being able to do a lot of direct damage. As for a silly tech pick, try giving Messenger of Peace a shot. True, it'll get in the way of Watt Taurus and Watt Hydra, and most anything you upgrade with Watt Cube, but it doesn't stop Watt Chimera. So do your entire Watt Cobra, Watt Tuna combo, end on Chimera, use Messenger of Peace afterwards, then keep poking away at your opponent until the game ends. And that's all I have to say about Watts. I think this new support is going to do wonders for the theme. It solves some outstanding issues where you just couldn't get them out quick enough to get your game plan online, and this new battle phase syncing angle is pretty sweet. I expect fans of the theme to get pretty charged up once the new cards drop, and here's hoping we get a similarly amazing turnout with the next few archetypes in this rotation: the Wheres, the Whys, and the Whos. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Watts what it's all about? Or do you not know what I'm talking about? And which one's your favorite? I'm a big fan of Watt Giraffe myself. It looks like the "let me do it for you" long dog thing. It's great. Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, make sure you like this video to boost it, subscribe to help the channel grow, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! To beat the algorithm. It really does a lot to help me out.
Today's episode was brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. When you want to protect your cards with the power of dragon scales, get some sweet lore for them, and support the channel, check out my link in the description to get started.
Today's episode is also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Green Knight, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajadel, Andrew Newman, A Random Pup, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Danny Bound, Eric, Aaron the World Breaker, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iskander 711, John, Jordan, Julius Sneezer, Mana Charge, Marluxia Zagirl, Molly Renata, Nathan Vig, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sammy Haim, Sir Knight JCB, Sky Buster Leo, Sophie, apparently, The Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Almento 5010, Aaron, Ariel Kersey, Beluga Masta, Blue Gem, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Emily, Eva Padilla, Hake Boyagian, Herbal D, In the House Like Carpet, Inblink, Jester Designs, Kale the Dragon, Carp, Kevon Public, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lemon Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-de-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Mega Kombi, Michael Shimabukuro, Nadia McCarthy, Nitromo, Ruxith Sarani, Shizuka Nijimura, Star-Lord 777, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, Tucker Ordorn, and Zal Dureka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, participate in monthly custom card reviews, and just keep the lights on in general, please consider becoming a patron by using that link in the description, or by becoming a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see another Thunder-focused archetype, check out this video I made covering Thunder Dragons. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.